Gamer Joe Coffee here. We're back today with a special video. As you guys may know, my Minecraft playthrough is kind of messed up now that the update happened and corrupted my save. So today I've got a coffee bean review video for you. Today we're going to discuss some of the beans that I've tried and what I've done with them and which ones I liked and the flavors and all that, and then discuss my own personal rating. So let's get started. Okay guys, the first one is a Four Horsemen Coffee Bean Corral blend. This is a blend that the company that I use does themselves. This was a good one to start off with, and it was something I wanted to kind of trial before I knew whether or not I was going to stick with the coffee. And this is something I use with the popcorn popping method that I have been using, which you guys saw I upgraded from that, so that's nice. But yeah, according to Coffee Bean Corral, the Four Horsemen is a coffee trader reference to the countries of Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Costa Rica. They typically group these countries together for the Four Horsemen blend because they share a similar harvest calendar. They also share a similar tropical environment, and they're located in the Mesoamerican highlands. So this kind of helps group them together for the Four Horsemen blend. So that's why they're kind of all in the same group. So this mix has a nice balance, acidity, and body with a mild flavor. The mild flavor is kind of the reason I picked it, because I was a little concerned that with something with maybe a heavier flavor, it might have issues with mixing the added flavorings that I was going to experiment with. So I wanted something that kind of had a bit of a mild flavor to start, and then kind of maybe play with some other blends and mixes of beans after that. So that's the main reason I picked this one, just because it kind of had a mild flavor listed on the site when I ordered it. So yeah, I didn't want the beans to overpower the subtle flavoring, and the beans do have a smooth sweetness and a fruity acidity that kind of gives a clean flavor. So all this was good reasons why I picked this for my first try. Overall, the beans were very successful. It was a good starting point for my experiments and developing my own roasting skills and kind of learning how to roast and how to improve as I went. Then I decided after that to kind of go branching out and try new other options, see what paired best. Overall, I would give this one a 7 out of 10 for specific flavor pairings. There were some flavors that paired with it well, and there were others that didn't, but it didn't really, like, the flavors that paired with well weren't like a perfect pairing. It was good, but it wasn't like full on, higher. So that's why I gave it a 7 out of 10. As far as generic pairing, so generic flavor across the board, paired with most of the flavors that I had and didn't really overpower too many of them, so that was really good. I gave it an 8 out of 10 for the generic pairing. And then its own flavor on its own was pretty good, had a good quality, so I gave that a 7 out of 10 for its own flavor of the beans without the added flavors. Okay guys, the second one I tried is the Brazil Oberon Natural 1718. So one of the second beans we tried was the Brazil Oberon Natural 1718. This blend is a 100% Cerrado blend. It is known for a creamy body, sweet chocolate and citrus notes, and a light acidity. It has a chocolate nutty flavor with a fruity aftertaste. It's a clean and balanced feel in general. So I kind of picked this to help accent some of the chocolate and nutty flavors that I was using. I figured maybe it would pair well with some of like the chocolate cream or the Snickers, or something that had kind of maybe a nutty flavor or chocolate or both mixed. So it did seem to pair fairly well with those. Overall, it wasn't the top choice. It didn't really pair well in general. when we applied it, so it kind of lacked the universality that we were looking for our standard roast. But it was very good for the specific flavors like the chocolates and nuts and that kind of thing. So for specific pairing, I gave it an 8 out of 10. It had very good specific pairing for the chocolate and nutty notes. But for generic pairing, I gave it a 6 out of 10. It was good in general, but it wasn't great in general. Some of the flavors didn't blend well. Some of them kind of overpowered by the flavor. So it kind of, it blended well. It complemented the chocolate and the nutty, but it kind of got in the way of some of the other flavors. And then its own flavor, I gave it a 7 out of 10. It had a pretty good flavor, kind of in line with the CBC that I experienced. Pretty good flavor overall. So I gave it a 7 out of 10. Okay, so the next one I want to discuss is the Bolivian Organic Caranavi La Paz. So this bean is a specialty bean, Bolivian grown by a small group of native coffee farmers in high elevations up to 8,500 feet above sea level. So they're cultivated in the tropical region of Bolivia in 41 small farms averaging 3 acres each. Their lands are certified organic, and most of them are labeled as Smithsonian bird friendly. So this group is comprised of indigenous people native to the land at the edge of the Andes Mountains and on the border of the Amazon. This bean had a big chocolate flavor and a small citrus feel, along with a caramel finish. It paired well with a lot of our caramel or caramel type flavors. Something that maybe had some chocolate in it. So for us, the Snickers was a great pairing with this. It really did well for the chocolate and caramel type feel. So that was a perfect one for that. Overall, it wasn't great for some of the non-chocolate flavors, but for the specific pairing for Snickers, it was really amazing. But that was the only one we could really use it on. So we had to seek other general options for our flavors. But this one was a very good pairing for that specific use case. For specific pairing, I gave it a 9 out of 10. It was like perfect, dead on for the Snickers flavor. But then on the generic pairing, I gave it a 6 out of 10 because it paired okay, but it didn't do a great job. Covered up some of the lighter flavors, that kind of thing. Now, its own flavor itself, I gave it an 8 out of 10. It did have a really good flavor on its own. But in pairing with the added flavors, it kind of struggled to complement in general, even though it did really, really specifically pair well with that Snickers. Okay, guys, so the next one I want to talk about is the Costa Rica La Mentina Terrazzo. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing any of these correctly, so forgive me for that, but this coffee is Rainforest certified. The Rainforest Alliance is an international nonprofit organization working to make responsible business the new normal. They strive to protect forests, improve farmer and forest communities, promote human rights, and help mitigate climate crisis. Being certified in this alliance shows that they're working to meet the same goals. So this coffee had a bright acidity, a medium body, and a citrus, chocolate, and caramelized sugar type flavor. It was fairly well balanced. It did provide a good taste on its own and paired well with some more of the sugary, sweet type flavors. It did fairly well in general and was pretty balanced for adding the flavoring. So I gave it a 7 out of 10 for the specific pairing. Didn't really pair too good with anything real specific. It did kind of work well with some of the flavors, but it didn't really pair well with anything in specific. In general, though, we gave it an 8 out of 10 because in general it did pretty much provide a good, mostly universal flavor complement for most of our flavors that we were using. And then the flavor itself, I gave it an 8 out of 10. It has a good flavor. It's definitely a good option. But it is definitely not the one we picked to be our universal one, but it is definitely a good selection, and definitely one I would drink again. Okay, the Kenya Makwa AA. This is the next bean that we're going to discuss. These beans were produced by small farm holders in Kiambu County, surrounding the volcanic soil of Mount Kenya. They are consolidated at a local mill, where they are double fermented to accentuate the complexity, aroma, and flavor. This is a high-grade Kenyan coffee bean. The flavor has a sweet wine acidity. It has flavors of black cherry, tropical fruit, toffee, blackcurrant, hoppy kind of feels. It paired fairly well with some more of the fruity flavors we tried. It really did kind of struggle, not overpowering the flavoring in general for sure. But the flavor alone was really good, and it kind of paired well with some of the fruity flavors. It wasn't really good for a pairing, but the flavor itself was good. So for specific pairing, I gave it a 6 out of 10. It did okay, but it didn't do great. For the generic pairing, I gave it a 5 out of 10. Didn't really do well pairing with the generic flavors at all. And then the flavor itself, I gave it an 8 out of 10. It was a good flavor. It just it wasn't really built to complement the additional flavors that we were experimenting with. So I definitely would drink it, but I would probably prefer to drink it more as a raw bean flavor instead of adding any flavors or anything to it. So yeah, definitely a good flavor. Okay guys, the next one on the list is Ugandan Organic Bugisu. Of course, again, I have no idea if I'm pronouncing these correctly, but bear with me. These organic beans are sourced from a small family-owned farm in the Bugisu region on the slopes of Mount Elton in Uganda. This roast does better with a little bit of a darker end of the roast, which kind of made it difficult to pair with the flavorings. Flavor itself is good. No complaints there. If you roast it light, you do kind of miss out on some of the key sugars in the roast. So if you do want the flavor to come out, you want to kind of give it a darker roast, but that darker roast also helps overpower the flavor additives. So it kind of didn't pair too well with our flavors, but it did have a good decent flavor on its own, as long as you roasted it to the darker end of the roast. The cup is complex. It has notes of chocolate and dark fruits with an earthy feeling finish. It's kind of on the lower end for its acidity. The body is fairly light, but with added flavoring, there's quite a risk that the rich flavors can overpower the added taste. Pairs well with a darker chocolate flavor or something deep and rich. But in general, we decided kind of wasn't working out for us. Specific pairing, we did give it a 7 out of 10. The darker or rich flavors did seem to work somewhat with it. But the generic pairing, we gave it a 5 out of 10. So it was pretty good for the specific, but the generic was definitely not working out too well. The flavor overall was a 7 out of 10. It was a good flavor. Definitely, no complaints, but as far as pairing wise, we did have some issues with it. So that's why we decided to move on to our next one. Okay guys, these next two items were purchased as part of a roaster relief program. These items were offered at a discount to help support struggling growers during the 2020 issues that we've been having. So we did pick those up as part of that relief, and then decided we would try and see what we could do with them and experiment. It was a new flavor we hadn't tried, so we just see what happened. So the first one is the Rwanda Mabaro. This is a Rwandan bean. It has a taste of red apple, hibiscus, dried fig, berry, orange, and cocoa flavors. The feel is crisp and clean with a citrus acidity, which is kind of more on the mellow end. It paired well with some of the fruity flavors, but it kind of struggled with some of the more savory or deeper flavors. For the deeper flavors, the best you can hope for is that the flavor itself overpowers the flavor of the beans, which instead of pairing with them, which is kind of like defeats the purpose. You want to kind of pair that flavor of the bean. You still want to have the coffee flavor, but you want it to marry the additional flavors and kind of provide a good overall flavor once the two are combined. So definitely not a good option, because if it was good, it just overpowered the flavor of the beans themselves. So that kind of defeated the purpose for us. Specific pairings for the fruity flavors, we gave it an 8 out of 10. And paired really well with some of the lighter fruity flavors that didn't overpower it. But in general, we gave it a 5 out of 10. It wasn't that good for us for general pairing, because it did have to. The added flavors had to overpower the beans to get any sort of cohesive flavor going on in the cup. So it did kind of not work out well on the generic side. The flavor itself was definitely an 8 out of 10. It was a good flavor. Liked it. Just that generic pairing didn't really work out for us. This next bean was also part of the roast relief. This was the Rwanda Mushioni. Again, not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but there we go. The Mushioni is the second bean of the roast relief program. It had a fruit and mild spice taste, crisp floral and stone fruit notes, the acidity of a candied citrus. The bean had similar issues as the other one with being overpowered. Didn't really pair well with anything in specific, but it was like the only time it really did shine with the flavoring was when it was overpowered, and that's kind of not what you want. There wasn't really anything specific that we found to pair it with that we had in our flavor shelf, so it kind of overall got a low score for us. Specific pairing, we gave it a 6 out of 10. Like I said, there wasn't really anything it really paired with that we had on the shelf. Generic pairing, gave it a 5 out of 10. Again, it didn't really pair too well unless it was the beans were being overpowered, which we didn't really want. The flavor itself, I would definitely give it an 8 out of 10. I mean, it was a good bean. It was a good flavor, but it did not pair well with the added flavors, and it was kind of a no-go for that reason. Okay guys, last but definitely not least is my current favorite, the Columbia Huila Supremo. This is a classic Colombian coffee with a lighter body than normal. It's got kind of a light chocolate flavor with a great balance. It has a rich, nutty, sweet kind of flavor, and it makes great for like a after dinner coffee, like a dessert type feel, which tend to pair well with our added flavors, because our added flavors kind of give it a sweeter dessert type feel. This is definitely by far my favorite bean that we've tried. The flavor's mild, so it doesn't really overpower. It doesn't really compete with any of the flavors I add to it, but it also doesn't get buried by the flavors because of the softness. So it kind of is a good medium flavor. It kind of pairs well, but when it doesn't pair well, it blends well, and it doesn't kind of compete with the flavor. So it does really good on both sides. It kind of the sweet, soft, nutty flavors complement a lot of the flavors I've attempted. The Snickers, Butterfinger, candy bar type flavors really pair well with the chocolatey and nutty type feel. It's a good coffee on its own, but it definitely pairs well with a lot of our added flavors. So as for specific pairing, I gave it an 8 out of 10. It really does a good job of pairing with some of the specific flavors that we've got, because of the chocolate and nutty. The generic pairing, I gave it a 9 out of 10. It's really good at generic pairing. It doesn't overpower the flavor, but it also doesn't run away from the cup when the flavor's added. So it kind of balances best of both worlds kind of thing. So it's definitely very good on both sides. And then The flavor in general, I gave it an 8 out. The flavor itself, I gave it an 8 out of 10. It's got a good flavor to it. I love it just, without flavoring, but the added flavor definitely helps boost, especially when you pair it with a good like Snickers or Butterfinger that kind of marries with the chocolatey, nutty flavor of the bean. Really complements it. So overall, that one's definitely my favorite. It's definitely the best one we've tried. So yeah, I definitely love this one. Hey guys, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed some of the information I've been giving you. This is kind of a look back on some of the beans I've tried. I haven't really tried too many more new ones. I've been still kind of working through some of the ones I've got. But hopefully maybe in the future I'll have some more videos when I try out some new flavors. Currently right now, as I said, the Columbia Huilo Supremo is definitely my number one. It's the one I'm using pretty regularly for all of my my roasts that I do and all of the added flavors that I make. People definitely loving the flavors, so I think it pairs pretty well. We drink it pretty much every day, so definitely a good pairing, a good option. Shout out to Coffee Bean Corral for supplying these. They've got a great shop. They've got great prices. It's good quality beans. Definitely fast shipping. So yeah, definitely appreciate those guys over there. Thank you guys for checking out the video. If you liked it, hit like. Hit that subscribe button down there if you want to see more coffee videos going forward, or if you want to see more of my gaming videos. I am doing some more of those. Still going to try to figure out what to do with this Tuesday time slot because my Minecraft video went down. I am trying to get into a Minecraft server to do maybe some live streaming. So maybe the Tuesday videos just go away and we do some more live streaming during the week. We'll have to see. I'm just trying to balance my schedule out and figure out what I'm going to do. Hit me up in my socials. I love interacting with you guys and love to see you guys on there. Love to chat with you. If you have any questions, drop them down in the comment section below or hit me up on my socials. I've got my merch down on my link tree. Love my shirts and my shirt designs, and I'm still kind of trying to finalize one of my ones that I'm working on. It's more of a programming related shirt, so I think it's pretty cool. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. I've been Gamer Joe Coffee, and I will see you guys next time.